Alright guys, hey now. Welcome back to Duct Tape and a Butter Knife. Today's adventure will be installing a recessed mantle mount box and a motorized MM815 mantle mount. The client has a fireplace being built and he wants to have a recessed mantle mount put in this. I'll put a picture up here of what it looks like now. And so basically we are going to be putting a TV in that space. Now hopefully all the measurements are okay. I have not been on site. This is a client I've done work for previously, and he gave me a call and wanted to have this done. I told him it needed to be done before the fireplace is finished, if he wants that finished look, if you will. Now they do make brackets for this mantle mount recess kit that will go horizontally on the top and the bottom, and you can screw it into studs on the wall, but we're not going to do that. What we're going to do is we're going to cut we're going to cut the plywood and recess this back in. But in order to do that, there are studs that are directly, there's one stud particularly that's directly in the way of where we need to go. So basically what we need to do is cut out, we have to mark where the mantle mount is going to recess into the wall, and we have to cut out from the stud on the right to the stud on the left, straight across horizontally, and cut that whole piece out. And then we're going to have to do some framing so that we can install this mantle mount recessed box so it sits into the wall. Mantle mounts are a great product, but they do stick off of the wall. I think it's around 4 inches or so. So this will pretty much eliminate all of that, and the TV should pretty much sit flush to the outside wall once everything is said and done. So yeah, that's today's escapades. So I'm about to stop at Wawa and get some Nectar of the Gods, some of their delicious coffee, and I will see you guys on site. Okay, so this is our television. It is, so it looks like a 77-inch LG OLED. This will be going on our fireplace. And here is the MM815 that I need to get installed on the back of this television. Then once this is installed on the back of the television, I need to then place the back box on here, the recess box, get everything set up so I know exactly how much room I have from the bottom and the top of this television. Once I get that done, I'll transfer those measurements onto the wall, and that's going to tell me where I need to cut. So with the mantle mount, that's usually how I do it, even though one that's not recessed, but especially one that's recessed, is I always put the mount on the television like this. I lay it down and get my measurements top to bottom. That way I know the height. Now there's other ways you can do it. This to me is just the easiest because I have the exact measurement. I don't have to guess. I don't have to use formulas. I have the measurement. So that's the first step. So let's get this unboxed and installed. So that's that. Now we're going to get the back box. Sorry, the recess box. I keep calling it a back box, but it's a recess box. The model number is RB100 and the mount is the MM815, just so you guys know. Now, this RB100 works, I think, with all of their mounts. Well, actually, it tells you right here, the 700 series, the 540, and the 340. It also works, doesn't say it, but works with the 815. So what this does is it sits in the wall like this. So for today's, we're going to be going backwards. Comes with a bunch of hardware, but we're just going to slide these in here so that it stays where we need it to stay. And we had to do all of this just so we could get our measurements before we even cut a hole or mark a mark on the wall. So now this is secured in there, not going anywhere. So what I do now is I sit my mount, my level up this way. just my little Milwaukee bullet level. Sit it up this way on the end of the television. Try and keep it as level as I can. And what I'm going to do is measure from the top here to the top of my TV. I'm about 8 3/4 inches to the top. So I'll just mark that. 8 3/4. You can't see that, but I can. I'll do the same down here off of the bottom. And here I'm just going to have to guesstimate the best I can. Out there, so about 5.5 inches. So now I know I did all of that to get those two measurements. It's very time consuming to do this, especially if you have never done one before. If you've never done one before, God bless your soul. Now let's go do some measuring out on the fireplace itself. 5.5 and 8 3/4. All right, so let's get these T25 out. And there we are. Just for the record, let's take a look at this. This is not what you want to do. So this is where the previous mount was. So each one of these, this is probably the same ones I use. Each one of these is supposed to hold over 300 pounds in drywall. 4 on the corners would have been more than enough to hold this TV, but they did it all the way across. The problem with this is, if you try to tear a piece of cardboard or something, it's tough to tear, right? But the ones that are perforated with the seam on them to tear, so all this does is weakens the structure, so it makes it easier for this TV to come down. You never want to put that many in there. In theory, it sounds good, but every time you drill a hole in here, it's weakening the drywall. So 4 corners and maybe one in the middle on the top, more than enough for a TV. Okay, so now we have this open. We need to get this out of the way. And that's going to be level with here and the bottom. So let's get this out of here. Beautiful. All right. You see they marked the center line here, which is perfectly in line with mine. So what we're going to do now So we're going to use our stencil again. And we're just going to put it in here on our center line because this drywall needs to come out. This doesn't have to be perfect, it's going to be behind the wall, but it does have to get out of here. And then the stud behind here has to be removed as well. Okay, so I need that out, so I'm going to cut this out now. This should be easy enough. What the hell? Oh man. So 2 3/4. We need 3 1/2. The hits keep coming, boys and girls. The hits keep coming. So electric will also electric's in a bad spot. There's no way it's going in a box. This shouldn't be like this. You're not supposed to have this exposed line out of a box, and there's no way that was in the box. So shame on whoever did that. Of course, they both come from opposite directions. Plenty of room on this one. So I think I'm gonna have to pull this one through, put the electric over here. And a good battery would help. I'm terrible about keeping batteries charged. Okay, so one piece, we need that one. The next one we cut off, we will not need. Okay, so slight change of plans. I was going to brace from here to here, here to here, because initially I thought these 2x4s were going to be structural. They're not structural. It's just to bump this off of here. That's all that is. So instead, I think I'm just gonna rip a 2x4 long enough to tuck up into here so I could screw it in on the top and the bottom. And then the same here from here up to here, screw it in. So just need some measurements here. I guess I'll go down about 3.5 inches on either side. So we'll just add 7 inches to it. We'll just call it 36. I'll cut 2 3-foot boards and be right back in. Okay. So I got those 2 pieces of wood just slid up in there. And now I'm gonna put these back on. Let's play a bit of Jenga. Splinters galore. So I'll just put this one here for now. All right, so that piece is back in there. Oh, a little bit too far. So I just want this guy flush with that. And I'll send the screw in here. All right. Now send one right here. That guy's in. One in the bottom. Okay, so now that can't go anywhere, and I'll put some more in to secure that. Now, get this guy over there a bit. Get this piece put back on. Maybe. There we go. Send one screw in here. Just to secure that on there. And just put one in the center, get us started here. Send one up here. And then send one on the bottom. Now my brackets are in. Let's push all this stuff back here. And now we have to make sure that it slides in before we go any farther. Moment of truth. Oh, perfect. Beautiful. Beautiful. All right. That is beautiful. What I need to do, cut this bit out. Okay. There we go. Beautiful. That's perfect. All right. So now we're going to get some screws, and we're going to screw this into the side all the way around. Put like 1 or 2 on the top, 1 or 2 on the bottom, and then I can secure everything else in around it. And that'll stay there, so I'm gonna look at it back here. And hopefully my measurements are right. And there we go. I just gotta sink a bunch of screws in there and call it a day. Okay. Now, next thing we need to do is need to bring all the low voltage wiring over here, and we need to bring the electric over to here. So that's the next step we gotta do. Should be pretty straightforward. So I'll be back when I have the holes cut out and everything's in. All right, guys, here's the finished product. About 2 weeks has passed since the last part of the video. We had this beautiful tile work done. And the TV has, you literally have 1/4 of an inch, maybe on the top and bottom. So my measurements needed to be exact. Now they did go with a bit of a wider tile here at the bottom. This was sort of an afterthought, but it works really well. So it's a very thick piece. It's a 3/4 of an inch at least. So that really shrunk the gap. But this, let me press this down here. If you look underneath of here at the space we have when this comes out and clears, this is why the measuring is precise. It needs to be precise. There's like nothing underneath of that. But this is the MM815 Motorized. Comes all the way down. About 26 inches of drop. Tilt it to the left. Tilt it to the right. It's got an auto centering feature, so if I leave that shifted off to the right like that and just press up, you see it's a bit cockeyed there. It'll straighten itself out on the way up, so don't hit the wall. There it goes, starts straightening itself out. Slowly raises all the way up to a full stop. I have this adjusted as best I can to be as close to the front of that wall as possible. I think this is about as perfect as you can get, in my honest opinion, and I think it looks great. Zoom out a bit. When that fireplace is going, it's going to look awesome. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this, and give a like, subscribe. I'll see you on the next one.